Hey there, good people. So, here's my question for you today. How's real life treating you? Oh my gosh. No, I'm not being facetious. Today, I want to talk about real life and the real you and how you can get your real life back and get back to and enjoying the things that, you know, you used to enjoy or maybe exploring some new things and the reason why that's important. Patricia here. So glad to be with you today as we go down a little bit of this self care journey conversation and how important it is. Even though, in some circles it still seems cliche, it is not cliche. Taking care of yourself absolutely matters. And in this particular case, we're going to talk about why. But before we jump in, I want to remind you to hit that thumbs up button so that we can have more people join in and you can share and we can push the little YouTube algorithm and all that great stuff. But basically, asking you to continue to help push the word out about this channel and all the things we're trying to do to help professional women, entrepreneurs, women of color to keep moving forward with their goals, with their dreams, while recognizing and remembering like real life happens. And speaking of real life, so here's the thing. I have always had tons and tons of hobbies and interests. I can remember as a child that like I had tons of journals back then that I kept, different types of journals I kept. I had a book collection, and I could only afford paperbacks, and all of them I bought with my own money back in the day. And I feel like they're in storage somewhere in East Texas, probably rotted out by now. But paper, my books, my music. How could I forget my music, my little music collection? I had all the tapes and things like that before it became to CDs, and then I had the CDs. And, those are all things I love to do. And as I grew as a person, my interest grew. But some of those baseline things didn't change. I still loved reading. I loved my books. um, as I got to law school and my ability to read full length novels dissipated, I then became obsessed with magazines, and that never left. So I then became obsessed with books and magazines. And then let's see, oh, choir. I grew up in choir, in my church choir. I did a little bit of choir in school, but mostly I ended up doing speech and debate, which meant I could not do choir in school because I was always competing in debate tournaments on the weekends. But I did it at church. Like I literally grew up singing in the choir, probably from like age 3, 4, 5. I can remember seeing that. Um, and so I did that, and I did that through high school at church, and then when I went to college, I joined the choir in college. Let's see, my books, my magazines, my uh, music. Then I start being able to be a little bit grown up and go out and hear, live concerts. I wasn't a concert junkie, not like my daughter. My daughter is absolutely a concert junkie, and I have totally encouraged that. Going away to find concerts. I actually took her on some of her first concerts when she was like 9 or 10. I remember that, sharing in those experiences with her. But I have a few, but I definitely love listening to live music, especially jazz. In Austin, the live music capital of the world, self-named that. But there's a lot, you literally could walk into a coffee shop and have live music, right? And so those were things that I always enjoyed. And I always enjoyed my plants. My grandmother had a green thumb, and I was the only other person in the family to get the green thumb as well because everyone else killed the plants. As was proven by the fact that when I had to go away for law school, all of my plants that I had from undergrad, I I handed over to one of my sisters to take care of. I came back to nothing. So I had to start from scratch. So I'm talking about all of this because in the midst of so many different things going on personally and professionally, personally, we were moving a lot and you know, my, you know, parents divorced, my mother remarried. There were all kinds of other things going on in the family. I changed schools, I changed colleges. I mean, like, there was a lot of change going in my life at any given time, right? But I always had these interests and these hobbies to, dare I say, self soothe. I didn't realize that's what they were then, but I recognize it now. And, to always, they could go with me wherever I was. And so that's what happened. They went along with me. And as I experienced new things, as I went from undergrad in Texas to law school in California, like, these things and these interests, I was able to continue them even in the most difficult situations. And then as I graduated, returned back to Texas, and started working. Again, all of those things, I added some of them to my interest in volunteering and service, which I'd grown up. I grew up in a community where public service was valued and encouraged. So I was able to do some of that. But then this stuff starts building on itself, right? And I was still doing those things. And then, I get married, and a couple of years later I have kids, and I'm still doing the thing, believe it or not. Even with all of those things going on, some jobs with high ranking responsibilities, a, a husband, two kids. When I started not feeling like myself, that I kind of knew what it was. I'm like, oh, I haven't gone to one of my scrapbooking classes in a long time. And my husband would be like, please go, because you're about to explode, right? Or I would just say, I'm out. And I would go to the bookstore and sit and just be amongst the books, right? Those were things that I recognized were self-soothing to me, and what I recognize now as calming my nervous system. Um, through so many difficult and challenging situations. And then things just really took a nosedive because now, a few years beyond that, I'm in the thick of things, right? I am leaving an executive level job. I'm going into this working on my own, not because I wanted to at that time, but because politics happens. And so there I am, uh, trying to figure out what the next move is with two small kids, and the challenges happen. And so, yes, I was still trying to make a way. The plants went away though because they weren't safe for the kids. That meant I'd have to look and figure out what worked and what didn't. With kids around, we didn't have pets, but kids like to gnaw on things. So the plants slowly went away or became lesser. Um, my you know, scrapbooking and paper obsession became lesser because that took time away from the kids or from trying to get to church or whatever the thing was. And then choir became lesser because, hello, my husband sang, I sang, and there was all these things going on. Kids' activities started taking over, and getting downtown, in the middle of the week became harder and harder. And so I gave it up. And we just keep moving along until, in the midst of so much more change, right? So change is a constant, it's always going to happen in your life. But in the midst of so much more change, I really realize I am not happy. Things are not good. And what in the world is really going on? because while I had things around me that I enjoyed, I was not enjoying them. I still had bookshelves full of books. I go buy books and then not read them or not have time to read them or not make time to read them. I have a whole slew of scrapbooking supplies that were piling up untouched, right? Um, the drives to the bookstore became fewer and fewer. Listening to live music, are you kidding me? I didn't have time for that. And all of these different things that I used to really enjoy became like the shell until I realized I'm like, I am living real life, but real life is kicking my butt because in the midst of living real life and working the job and pursuing all of the things, I began to lose myself. And that happens with so many of us. And I know this because I coach women. I've worked with women where this was happening. Not just folks who had, some years of experience behind them, but even on the front ends of their careers where they're about to be headed this direction, right? And so in the midst of me coaching them about how to um, prepare their careers to align with their life in a way that's sustainable, I always remind them, take time for yourself. And I build that into my programs because I say you need to decide what one or two hobbies you're going to take up while we're working together. And they're like, what does that have to do with anything? And I'm like, trust me on this. Because when you're going through significant transitions personally, professionally, with your job, with your business, you have to have an outlet. Oh, I forgot cooking. Well, that happens, but that's about preparation, right? Because you got to eat. And I was never one just big on just eating out just to be eating out. But even that was not so much about enjoyment as it was about necessity. And the thing is, we can get so caught up in doing the things that have to happen to keep things moving through the day that we forget to stop and actually sit and look at where we are in that moment and actually enjoy it. And that's what's really important. It is so important to sit and remember that no matter what is going on, you deserve that time and you have to carve it out. And you probably have to um, help people unlearn. You have to unlearn some things for yourself because it means you've probably been letting your boundaries get crossed. You've probably been letting people take you for granted. And notice I'm saying, like, we have to own that for ourselves, right? And then we have to take the action that it's going to take to undo that. And it's not easy and it's not always pleasant because some people are not going to be happy because they've been perfectly happy with taking advantage of your time and your resources and your emotional labor. This is a real thing. However, if you don't want to be a shadow of yourself down the road, you have to take that first step. So that's what I encourage you to do is to identify those areas in your life where they've been fading away, not because you don't enjoy that work anymore or those things anymore, but because you've been letting it get crowded out. It's been crowded out by other people, by other things, by other situations, by work. And you're not taking care of yourself. You're not making sure to implement the motto that I'm so fond of with self care is not selfish. And by self care, I'm not just talking about spa days and getting your nails done, ladies, or whatever. All of those things can be very important. And if that's one of the ways you like to set aside and take care, great. But I'm talking about your emotional and your spiritual health as well, your mental health. There's nothing like sitting in front of a lake sometimes or a body of water and just like letting the thoughts flow. That is a huge self care moment for me. And we have some lakes around here, but like when I go to California to visit friends and my daughter, I am mad when I don't get to go to the beach because getting to the beach is a soul stirring moment for me. Feet in the sand, ocean going around. Like, if I can make sure that happens, I am happy, and that will sustain me for several months. Just that experience. It will remind me to engage in less momentous things, but just as important, right? Getting in the car and going to the bookstore to go sit, going to a coffee shop and be a hanger outer. Or, even if I'm getting some work done, it's changing my environment. Remembering that, and this is not a good example today, but remembering that I love colorful things and clothes, and not just a lot of black. This is actually navy and it's a lovely little thing. But I just noticed, I'm like, even in the clothes that I was wearing, it was changing. Whereas I used to have all these colorful suits and all of that, like it just shifted to, you know, the basics and the basics and not drawing attention and not being visible. There's so many other things that feed into this, right? So I encourage you to be mindful of that. And you may have to sit down with a cup of coffee, cup of tea, or maybe a glass of wine and a journal and write down, like, what are the things that you have enjoyed throughout your life that you no longer do. Make a list. And after you do that, then check off those that you're like, but I still like this stuff. I still like to do this. And so then that makes the next question to be, why aren't you doing it anymore? And be honest about why you aren't doing it. Is there a cost associated? The cost, not just financial, is there a cost of time? Is there a cost of energy? It's just like, I just don't have the energy for it. Or I don't feel like I have the time. And so then you can just keep digging and be like, okay, do you not actually have it? Or are you not making time for it? And then that gets you to making the decision to make time for what matters for you. It does not have to matter for anybody else. This is one of the most difficult things for women to do, which is to remember to do something for themselves that doesn't benefit anybody else. Seems easy, very hard. And when I tell you that that unlearning journey is long, it is. Because there are moments when I naturally just oh, do this for somebody else. And I have to be like, no, like, I'm going to go sit and I'm going to read my book for me first. You know, I, for example, I have work that I want to do for myself versus for one of my volunteer groups. And I have to actively go and make the decision. I'm like, no, I'm going to do this for me first. Is it work? Sure. But why does it matter? It's because that thing matters for me. And it's important because, let's say, it's a part of a bigger timeline or bigger project. And when I don't focus that on me, that means I'm affecting my own self care because it means I'm going to stress myself out later because I didn't give myself the time that I needed. I gave that time away to someone else. There is nothing like going back through and recognizing how much of my time I was giving away to other people, other organizations. Woo, that is mind boggling. It is absolutely mind boggling. Man, that's a whole other story, right? So I'm here to encourage you today, dear lady friend, dear woman, professional, entrepreneur, whatever role you have in your life, take the time you need. Schedule it if you have to. Schedule little coffee dates with a friend, with by yourself. You don't always need someone else. When my husband and I met, I had broken up with my previous boyfriend. And when we met, he came in, and when the first time he was over to my apartment, he was convinced that I, that I was dating somebody, and his only clue to that for him was that my my refrigerator was full, my cabinets were full of spices and all this. So he's like, she's cooking for some guy. Like there's something going on. And I was just like, no, I love to cook. And I have friends that we've been cooking together since undergrad. And we would literally have Sunday dinner together for years. Years. We started in college just cooking real meals for ourselves. So, as we split off and do things, whatever, like I did this for myself, cooking a real meal for myself. No one else had to be involved. Yeah, powerful. And speaking of that, like how empowering is it to stand up for yourself and remember to give yourself what you need in a moment? Because truly, if you want to be able to fill someone else's cup, you have to fill your own first. Let they get what is, I love this analogy someone said, not just to fill your own cup first, but don't pour from your cup, pour from the overflow that goes into the saucer. I'm like, I love that. I'm going to use that some more, right? You want to be able to give and share from your overflow, not from your own reserve, your own reservoir. And trust you me, because I've been there, I've done that. And man, when that reservoir goes empty, everybody's gonna pay. Everybody. Everybody. In one way or the other, mostly you. So that's my encouragement to you for today. Remember that self-care is not selfish. Go back, do the journaling that I mentioned. Ask yourself the questions honestly, provide honest answers to them, and then take that one step and go just rediscover yourself, rediscover who you are, what you love to do. What is something new that you want to do that you haven't done yet? I have a running list of those things as well, because you need to remember that there's always something that's worth doing just for you. And I think that's a great spot to end it on. So, just a reminder, I'm Patricia. In this part of the world, we love to talk about all things that help support women professionals, entrepreneurs, women of color as they seek to be better leaders, to learn how to speak up for themselves and for others, to build the relationships that are authentic and that they need to in their lives and in their careers, and ultimately make sure that they are taking great care of themselves throughout their life's journey. Don't forget, hit the thumbs up, hit subscribe, and share this out, please. And wishing you a fantastic day and evening. And hope you remember to celebrate yourself and all your greatness and all the things that you do in all the ways, because you are absolutely worth it. Take care.